Former super featherweight title holder Joe Cordina has set his eyes on Shakur Stevenson's WBC lightweight belt. It all happened too quickly, even though Joe was calling out all of the 4 belt holders of the lightweight division. After the recent loss, he moved up to the lightweight division and challenged Loma, Tank, and Shakur at the same time. Shakur, out of all of them, was the most desperate for a big fight and accepted it. This fight is now a done deal, and all the credit goes to His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh. He has assembled these two and a lot of other big fighters in the undercard of Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev. Michael Benson has confirmed this fight as announced. Shakur Stevenson will defend his WBC lightweight world title vs Joe Cordina on the Artur Beterbiev versus Dmitry Bivol undercard, October 12th in Saudi Arabia. Fans took great notice of this tweet, and the top reply was, "Perfect time to take a break and use the restroom before the main event." Joe Cordina has a history with his opponent from Newark. The two have exchanged harsh words on Instagram on numerous occasions. Cordina lashed out at Shakur for showing off and portraying himself as a gangster. Joe was particularly agitated by Shakur's excessive call-outs on Twitter. Cordina called Shakur and other American boxers Yanks and said, "You know what Yanks are like? They f***ing run their mouth and they just talk shit. I'll be honest, they wear big chains and they all think they're gangsters, which is mad." Joe is a credible fighter and has a 2-time super featherweight belt under his name. He promoted himself to the lightweight division after an upset defeat by Anthony Cacase. Joe was under serious heat about the decision to lose this fight. The fight broke his heart, but he did not cry over spilled milk. Joe has dealt with the demons of that loss and is ready to move on in his life. He has recently given his perspective about that match. "It was quite difficult because obviously, I haven't lost for a long time, and the way it happened, it had a bit of an effect on me and I didn't sit well with it. Yeah, you just gotta go with it." Like Shakur, Joe Cordina also has an extensive career in amateurs. He has represented Britain in the Olympics and Commonwealth Games, and Joe thinks that losing in an amateur game is completely different than losing in a professional bout. After a single defeat, the world forgets that boxing is the bread and butter of a fighter, and it comes to a point where a normal guy with a 9-to-5 job would make more money. Cordina highlighted his previous loss and what led him to move into the lightweight division. "In the amateurs, it doesn't really affect you because you are not prize fighting. You are fighting for medals. I fought some fighters 4 or 5 times. I beat them 3 times and they beat me twice, and it doesn't really matter. But if you lose in pros and at a certain level, then you go from top to there, and that's when your purses go down." For Joe Cordina, this fight is very important because it is the only way he can fulfill the needs of his growing family. Later, he explained the factor that led to his demise against Anthony. Joe blamed this defeat on the referee of that match, who did nothing on the 2 head punches Anthony launched on him after the end of round 3. Joe said, "It was quite comfortable in the first 2 rounds and at the start of the 3rd round. And when the referee said break, I stepped back and I had 2 big digs. They shook me to my boots. I've never been hurt before." And if we look in the past, Joe respected Shakur as a fighter and wanted to fight against him inside the ring. While speaking to Boxing Scene, the Welsh Wizard praised Stevenson and dispelled the people who call him boring. Joe stated, "It's mad because I see loads of people giving him stick, but if you love the art of boxing, you can't knock it. How can you knock that? He hits and doesn't get hit. He's smart. He's one of the best defensive fighters there is right now, so I don't understand what they're saying. I genuinely don't get it. It's people that just don't see the art of boxing. All they want to see is knockouts." And as the fight has confirmed, Shakur Stevenson is completely locked in. Instead of previous long notes, he has simply posted, "But Shakur was under the storm for fighting a guy who was completely new to most Americans." Like his previous fights, Shakur is marking Joe Cordina as an easy fighter and wants to win this fight for more options and a bag full of money. Shakur paid no attention to these fans who are conjuring this fight as a horrible matchup and wrote, "And for the fans who with me, I care about y'all, but understand this. This is a business, and let's make as much money as you can in this business. People want me to sit and wait around for literally every other fighter to make the decision whether they want to fight me now or later. But in reality, I will be waiting, but nah. I'm gonna go get this bag over here real quick, cause that's what matters the most to me now." Shakur recently had an interview with DAZN, where he opened up on the general criticism of him for being boring and how he was treated badly by the top-rank management. Shakur started off by saying that the people who criticize him non-stop don't know anything about the sport. About the people who are criticizing him for fighting against Joe Cordina, Shakur said, "These guys are clowns to me. I think they are just picking their favorites. They like Tank. Come on. It's about this. They like this guy and that guy can beat this guy. So, they are going to down this guy. Truthfully speaking, These guys don't have any knowledge about the sport of boxing. After that, Shakur went on to explain that he is not the only guy who's been labeled as boring. He has no respect whatsoever for those who boo and pass comments like this to a fighter who puts his life on the line every time he steps in the ring. He named some of the biggest who faced similar criticism.
Boring, y'all not the first people to call a young black fighter boring. Floyd was called boring. Andre Ward was called boring. Pernell Whitaker, when he moved against the dude that he got robbed, his first fight, they called him boring.
Oh, Ramirez, yeah.
Ramirez, there you go. Bud got booed in fights before, and truthfully speaking, this is not the first time, so they just don't know the sport of boxing.
Do you really think these legends were boring? Tell us in the comments. Shakur described his journey with Top Rank as a big disaster of his life, and how he is ready to participate in some great fights under the guidance of His Excellency. He is set to fight against the Welsh Wizard on the 12th of October and is preparing for a statement victory. This fight had mixed responses, as most people were expecting Shakur to have a bigger fight. One of these men is Kenny Ellis, who is a trainer of Gervonta Davis and a very active boxing analyst. Kenny also had an eye on Shakur's WBC belt, and he wanted the Newark fighter to square off against Tank. After Shakur's fight with Joe Cordina, Kenny is very disappointed, and he has roasted Shakur in his Instagram stories. Kenny posted, huge fight coming up, Shakur Stevenson versus Joe Cordina. Get your tickets now. Kenny mocked the Shakur versus Cordina fight and called it huge to add salt to Shakur's wounds. Shakur, 22-0, 10 KOs, has already received a lot of criticism from boxing fans for choosing Cordina, 17-1, 9 KOs. One of Shakur's regular critics is Paulie Malignaggi, who wonders what makes Joe Cordina have a shot at the title in his first game in the lightweight division. Joe is coming off a defeat, and Shakur should choose a better opponent. Paulie also raised the fact that Cordina isn't ranked in the top 10 fighters in the lightweight division. He added, "It's not the bona fide best two guys in the lightweight division. I understand Cordina is solid, but he's coming off a loss. They bend the rules whenever they want to. Now you can be coming off a loss and get a world title fight. You could never do this before. I don't even understand how that could be possible." Not only that, Malignaggi raised questions on Cordina's performance against Edward Vasquez and Shavkat Rahimov. Eddie Hearn, who is promoting Joe Cordina, has also given his point of view relating to this fight. Initially, he was against this fight because also did not want Cordina to square off against Shakur Stevenson in his first fight.
Yeah, I've spoken to Joe about fighting Shakur Stevenson. Joe's up for it, but he also understands the challenge. Ideally, moving up a weight division, you'd probably want an easier fight than Shakur Stevenson, but Joe is at the age where he wants to be involved in the biggest fights in the sport, and if he feels like the opportunity's right, I'm sure he would take it.
In an interview with the It Is What It Is podcast, Floyd Mayweather, who guided a large portion of Tank's career before a bitter split, pointed out that Tank and Shakur are the best guys in their division, although they have different areas of expertise, but a fight between them would be the biggest fight of that year. He stated, "You got guys fighting between 130, 135, and 160. They stacked around that area. As of right now, the two guys, the biggest puncher at 135 would probably be Gervonta Tank Davis, but the most skillful fighter at 135 would be, hands down, Shakur Stevenson." Boxing presenter and MC Adi Oladipo also raised questions on the legitimacy of Joe Cordina in this title fight. He raised questions about the four governing councils which have their own fighters and are showing no interest in a unification fight, except for...
It goes to show just how up the 135-pound division is, where none of the champions are fighting each other. There are no unification.
The presenter scoffed at the idea that there is no serious effort for a unification of these belts. He added, "None of the champions are fighting each other. Baranchik is a champion, Loma is a champion, Gervonta is a champion, and Shakur Stevenson is a champion. Even with the power of Turkey, they can't make a unification fight in that division. It's a joke. Honestly, it's a joke." Oladipo thinks that this fight is great for Joe, who can have his bank filled with the Saudi money. Plus, if he can win this fight, he will be on the verge of the biggest boxing fights like Rayo Valenzuela. Except for lightweight, every other division has a unified champion or a unification fight in progress. But for Shakur, it's a lose-lose situation. He concluded, "For Shakur Stevenson, it's a weird one. You are fighting a guy who's moving up a weight class after a loss. That's a strange one. Were there no 135-pounders? The full card of the Riyadh season of 12th October is disclosed. It has some other exciting fighters, including Chris Eubank Jr., Fraser Clark, Jai Opitia, and the young Prince Nassim and Ben Whitaker. November 15th is also coming near with every passing day. Do you think that Cordina will block Shakur Stevenson? Is it going to be an interesting fight? Will this fight be marked as worth it? Tell us in the comments, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Boxism will be your go-to channel from now for getting the latest and biggest news of boxing. That's it for today. See you with another video.